Hello everybody, I'm Richard Gon of Back to Live podcast version. So this time, what I'd like to talk about is Russia attacked Ukraine, which is a natural, about which I'd like to tell you some stories. So this, I'm recording or I'm recreating this episode in the beginning of March in 2022, in which the war between Ukraine and Russia has been prolonged since since February. Anyway, so February or January, February or uh, maybe around that time the war began or the war started. So anyway, but so there are a lot of blames against Russia from other countries. It's like it's like Russia versus the rest of the countries all over the world in this in this in this not in this but in this time. And of course China is on the side of Russia, and China I don't think China supports Russia in terms of the war, but actually China is at least China is one of the friends of, or China is one of the allies of Russian Federation. So but so that Russia and Ukraine are on such a situation. So and this time every people and every person and every country blames Russia for having attacked Ukraine or attacking Ukraine still now. But actually, I think what Russia did was a natural, which is what I think. So I'm not saying war is a good thing, or I don't think what Russia did was I don't think what Russia did was good, because it was recommendable that Russia and Ukraine avoid fighting using weapons. There is a war which have been started by there is a war which has been started by Ukraine and Russia, and that war should have been eluded or evaded by those two countries, and if possible other countries should have supported to avoid to avoid that that war, which has been taking place between Ukraine and Russia. So, but actually, so what I'd like you to confirm is that it's a it's natural. Well, Russia has a right to protect its own country, because which is what I'd like you to confirm, or which is what I'd like you to know in this part. That is, so what I from which what I'd like to tell you is that Russia is obliged to protect its citizens. So of course it was so Russia attacked Ukraine, which I think is but which I think is natural. And because Russia has to protect Russian people, including ethnic Russian people and other Russian people having different ethnicities Russian from white Russian people, or white Russian people with Russian ancestry and ethnicity. So of course even the news in my country said that Ukrainians and Russians have the same ancestry, or the same ethnicity, and their original country is one. And I'm not an expert, or I'm not a professional of human history or Russian history, but actually there was some events which is why those two countries are separated. And if you point out that trigger of the separation between Ukraine and Russia was a dissolution of USSR, or Soviet Union. So that might be one of the triggers, or one of the events which caused the separation the separation into Russia and Ukraine. But actually, maybe Ukraine went away from Russia. That is because in USSR, Ukraine was one of the republics or one of the countries com- compo- composing 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 USSR, which is what I think, and that is of course that is a fact, which is why in the time of USSR, Ukraine is one of the territories or one of the region of USSR, and but after the dissolution or after the breakup or after the how should I say, not destruction, but after the end of the era of USSR, Ukraine became a sovereign country different from Russian Federation. So in its sense, I think it's a I think the decision made by Ukrainian government to join to join NATO is what there is so I think that the decision made by Ukrainian government to join NATO has to be admitted by Russian government. So or so in other words, Russian government had to or has to admit the decision made by Ukrainian government to join to join or that the decision that Ukraine joins NATO. So which means I'm sorry, I'm not so good at speaking out foreign language, but actually Russia so I'm going to tell you again. So Russia should have admitted, or Russia has to accept the decision or the fact that Ukraine is going to, or Ukraine wants to join NATO. So which is also what I'd like you to know. So which is why I think the fact that not the fact I think that the actions that Russia attacked Ukraine was wrong. So Russia in which point Russia is it was that Russia takes such blames or so it's so Russia is no, I don't know whether it's fine to say Russia is contemptible, but actually, it's natural that other countries blame Russia for what Russia did against Ukraine. So, but actually, Russian government has to protect its own people living in the territory of Russian Federation. So of course, I understand that, so Russian people and Ukrainian people have the same ancestry or the same ethnicity. So which is why, the fact that Ukraine joins NATO has a huge influence on Russian society. But actually, so here what I'd like you to know is that in Russian territory, or Russia comprises more than 193 ethnic groups, which means people living in Russia are, so not all people living in Russia are Russian people or ethnic Russian people. And for example, Tatar people live in Russian territory, or some Tatar people live in Russian Federation, and some Korean people live in Russian Federation, or some Korean people live in the territory of Russian Federation, which is a fact. So thinking about which, so for example, if Russian government says nothing about Ukrainian government attacked, if Ukrainian government attacked some Asian people living in Russian government, and if it is a hypothetical situation. I don't know whether that is a fact or not, but if there if there was a fact that Ukrainian people, some Ukrainian people attacked and killed some Asian Russian people in Russian territories, and the Russian government blame, didn't blame anything about what those Ukrainian people did against those Asian Russian people. So in such if there was such a fact, I think I want every government to do some sanction, to do really severe sanctions against the Russian government and Ukrainian government. That is because I'm an Asian person. As maybe you can understand what I'm. Maybe you can understand that I'm not a native speaker of English language. From my English I'm speaking out right now, and of course maybe you can tell only by my accented English language, but actually I'm a East Asian person, so the segregation against Asian people is it's not so it's not so good, and I'd rather want to say that segregation against Asian people is really detrimental for my life, because I'm a East Asian person. So in its sense, so some kind of assaults against Asian people in Russia are bad for me, and bad for Russian government, which is why even in such a sense, Russia protect it's an obligation of Russian government to protect Asian Russian citizens living in its own territories, living in its own territory, which is why so for example, so if the fact that in this case, what triggers that war was the fact. What triggers that war was the fact that Ukraine has a will or intention to join NATO, which triggers that war. So, but NATO is an enemy against Russia, which is why Russian government has to respond to the fact that so enemy territory or the territory of opponents are getting closer to its capital city. The capital city of Russia is Moscow, which is really close to Kiev or Kiev in English language. So thinking about the fact, it's natural for Russia to attack Ukraine because Ukraine is going to become an enemy. But I think there is a solution. So the solution is that NATO and Russia should have talked and they should have confirmed that they are not enemies anymore, which is what I think as one of the solutions. So as I told you in the beginning of this episode, Russia attacked Ukraine, which is natural. That is because so if Ukraine joins, or after Ukraine joining NATO, Ukraine is going to become one of the enemies of Russia, which is why it's natural for Russia to attack an enemy. So which is why to prevent such a warring situation, or to prevent wars between Russia and one of the NATO countries, one of the members, to prevent wars between Russia and one of the member countries of NATO. So Russia and NATO should have known that they are not enemies anymore, or they don't have any intention to attack each other even in the future if possible. So which is what they should have done, and so which means if possible they should do from now on. So as I told you in the middle of this recording, so it's March in 2022, which is why so the war has been prolonged, and as I told you, so I have not focused on. So I have emphasized that Russia is obliged to protect its own people, and which is the same as every country. So please imagine that, for example, so I'm going to use an example of the United States of America because the most listeners are American people. So please imagine that, for example, any enemy is fine. You can easily imagine. So, for example, so please, so it's I don't like you to use this example, but please imagine Empire Japan approaching to your country, or please imagine Empire really huge, really strong, huge country named Empire Japan has dispatched a group of force, and the military force of Empire Japan is approaching to, for example, New York City. But please imagine such a situation. And if on that occasion, United federal government does nothing against Empire Japan. So what do you think about it? What do you think about that situation? So in that situation, Empire Japan, a military force of Empire Japan is approaching to New York City, and it's going to bombard, or it's going to bomb, and it's going to attack, or it's going to massacre a lot of people living in New York City. So such a thing might happen if the federal government does nothing against that military force dispatched from Empire Japan. So that is really a horrible situation, isn't it? So if you so what you want in such a situation, what you want the federal government to do is to protect you and your family if you have family. So that is the case even to my country. So I want the Japanese government to protect my life, including the lives of my family members, and including the lives of my friends and my colleagues. And I want the government of Japan to protect all the people in this country, which is how I'm going to be protected, and my family are going to be protected. And so to start with, if enemy approaches to your territory, your government is obliged to protect your the people of the government, or the people if enemy approaches to a country, the government whose territory is approached by the enemy has to protect, or is going to protect people living in that country, which is why so in this, so compared to having this situation, having the warring situation between Ukraine and Russia, compared to this theory I'm talking about. So putting yourselves in the shoes of Russian government, Russian government, what the Russian government understood was that our enemy is approaching, our enemy was approaching, which is the understanding of Russian government, which is why Russia tried to protect its own people, or their own people. So if Russian government ceased to protect, for example, Asian Russian people, if such a thing happens, Ukrainian soldiers can enjoy killing or massacring, a lot of Asian Russian people. So if Russian government if Russian government permits such a thing, Russian government deserves, or was being done sanctions, or Russian government, if such a thing happens, I think Russian government is worse, getting a lot of severe harsh sanctions from the rest of the countries, which is what I think. Because I'm telling you this because I'm an Asian, not because I'm telling you because I'm an East Asian. So like which so what so of course the fact that Russia attacked Ukraine was really bad, or that is really a harsh event. So Russia shouldn't have attacked. But actually, from now on, what each country can do, or what Russia and Ukraine and other countries can do, is to talk about that Russia doesn't have to find NATO countries enemies, which is what NATO countries have to emphasize on for for Russian people and the Russian government. And Russia has to understand that NATO members are not enemies against Russian government, what has to be what has to be talked among Russia and the rest of the countries, which is what I'd like you to know, which is what I'd like you to realize. So maybe should I summarize what I have talked about. So anyway, so summarizing what I have talked about. So to start with, there's a fact that Russia attacked Ukraine, which is natural as a country, because every country has to protect its own people, its own citizens living in its own country, which is why if Russia, for example, if Russia permits other countries or the forces of other countries to freely kill, for example, Asian Russian people. So that if such a thing is tolerated, or if such a thing is permitted by Russian government, Russian government is worse getting or taking a lot of really harsh sanctions, which is my understanding, or which is what I feel. But actually, so what is possible to do in this situation is that so NATO countries have to tell Russian governments that they are not enemies against Russian government, and the Russian government has to understand that NATO countries are not enemies against the Russian government itself. Because for example, there is a fact that so more than 50% of gas supply sent to Germany was from Russia, which is according to an online source of information. So more than 50% of gas supply Germany takes comes from Russia, which is according to an online information. That online information says such a thing, considering which so nobody wants to, which is why what I'd like you to know is that nobody wants to fight each other. So Germany doesn't want to fight against Russia, and maybe Russian Federal, maybe most of the Russian people do not want to fight against other countries belonging to NATO. So which is why maybe in this situation nobody wants to fight, or nobody wants such harsh wars between which are held between Ukraine and Russia, which is also what I'd like you to know. So that's it. And at last, I wrote a Russian phrases that says Война была нужна. So it was war necessary, which is what Russian part was war necessary, which is the Russian part of the title says. So I don't think so. What wasn't necessary, which is my opinion. So that's it. So I'm going to end this episode, because I have told you I have finished summarizing what I have told you in this episode. So if you'd like to know what I have told you, so please go back to the last part where I was summarizing what I have told you in this episode. So that's it. Thank you very much for your listening. See you.